All right, welcome back. A new report from CBS indicates that our government watched the first Chinese spy balloon launch from China's southern coast and had been tracking it for nearly a week before it even entered our airspace. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, I thought they said that they had no chance to bring this thing down until long after it had completed its mission and spun out over the Atlantic Ocean off South Carolina. Yeah, that's what we're thinking too. Texas Senator Ted Cruz joins us now to talk more about this. Sir, it's good to have you back on the show. What a gift to the Chinese. Sit back with the popcorn, allow them to complete their entire surveillance mission. And in reality, we weren't even going to shoot it down at all until Americans found out about it, right?
Well, Rob, that's exactly right. This entire debacle with the Chinese spy balloon has significantly weakened U.S. national security. The Biden administration allowed this balloon to enter U.S. airspace, allowed it to remain in U.S. airspace for over a week, allowed it to conduct espionage, where it deliberately was targeting top secret military installations where we have some of our most significant national security secrets. It could hover over, it could engage in espionage. The payload was about the size of 3 school buses, so presumably it had serious equipment to photograph, to take videos, presumably to use things like infrared to engage in intercepts of communications. And the Biden administration did nothing the entire time it was engaged in its espionage mission. It waited until the mission was complete, until it had gathered all of the data and presumably sent that via uplink to a Chinese satellite and back to Beijing. And it was only after the mission was complete and it was over the Atlantic Ocean, after it had traversed the entire continental United States, that only then did they shoot it down. And what that means is 2 things. Number one, there is a real exposure of national security from the espionage that the Biden administration allowed to happen. But number 2, every enemy of America learned that the commander-in-chief was weak and unwilling to defend the homeland, and that is very, very dangerous. And I'll tell you, Rob, astonishingly enough, the administration has now admitted that Joe Biden didn't even know about the Chinese spy balloon for the first 2 days it was over U.S. airspace. When it was over Alaska, nobody bothered to tell the president. And it wasn't until some folks in Montana spotted it in the sky and it went online and it began getting news reports that the White House was guilted into finally acting. If an individual citizen hadn't taken a picture of it, I suspect the Biden administration would have bid it adieu and let it sail back to China.
It is something else. You know, we learn something new just about every day about this, and now we just learned that it seems like there's a lot of these things flying over our head, and we've started shooting them down, which is interesting in itself. I want to flip here for a second. I want to talk about a fentanyl trafficking hearing in the Senate this morning. You attended. It's a drug that kills more Americans than the Vietnam War every single year. You grilled DEA officials on this issue today. Let's take a look.
Would cutting the number of CBP agents in half hurt our ability to stop drugs? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe it would.
Okay. That's effectively what's happened under the Biden administration. Because right now today, more than half of the CBP agents are engaged in housekeeping and chauffeurs and babysitting of the 5.5 million illegal aliens who have crossed the border.
You make a good point. We're wasting our resources. They're doing jobs they shouldn't have to. And that woman you were interviewing did not want to answer that question.
No, she did not. She had political talking points, and the Democrats on the committee did as well. Their talking point, amazingly enough, Rob, is they say Joe Biden's open borders don't contribute to the 100,000 drug overdoses we had last year, the highest level of drug overdoses in our nation's history, which happens tragically to coincide precisely with the highest rate of illegal immigration we've ever had in our nation's history. 5.5 million people have crossed illegally under Joe Biden because of political decisions. They refuse to enforce the border. And later in that hearing, I asked the DEA administrator, I said, the single best thing that ever happened to the Mexican drug cartels was Joe Biden becoming president. Exactly. In 2018, the drug cartels made roughly $500 million from human trafficking. Now they make over $13 $13 billion a year just from human trafficking. They make about the same from drug trafficking. And I asked the DEA administrator, is it a good thing or bad thing that Joe Biden's open border policies have put tens of billions of dollars in the hands of these vicious drug cartels? She waffled and waffled and waffled and didn't want to answer. And then finally, about the third or fourth time I asked her, she admitted it's a terrible thing having these monsters and murderers making tens of billions of dollars because of Democrat open borders.
It's so common sense, and yet it doesn't match what their talking points are. And the honest truth is that anybody that's in a cartel in Central America probably has a Biden bumper sticker. And if they were really smart, they'd be throwing $50 or $100 million toward a Biden super PAC because, you know, that's how important it is to keep him in power in this country for them.